Good evening. I'm Karen Cunningham, the mayor of the village of Palmetto Bay, and I welcome you to today's 6th annual Kids Town Hall, Let's Talk Stress and Anxiety in Teens. Did you know that according to the National Institute of Health, nearly 1 in 3 of all adolescents ages 13 to 18 will experience an anxiety disorder? The world is a challenging place. As parents, community leaders, or anyone else who interacts with young people, we play a very important role in helping children take on new challenges, build coping strategies, and learn the resiliency skills they need to adapt in the face of adversity. Today, we will discuss this very important topic with a panel of professionals to help us understand how we as a community can come together and open lines of communication. Let me start by introducing my friend and colleague, the mayor of Pinecrest, Joe Cordino. Joe was elected as Pinecrest's 4th mayor in 2016 and was re-elected without opposition in 2020. He earned a BA from Villanova University and a master's in urban planning from the University of Cincinnati. Mayor Cordino is a certified urban planner and is the president of the Cordino Group. He is the past chairman of the board of several local organizations and is the longest serving elected official in the village of Pinecrest's history. But his most important role has been dad to Alexis and Joe, both who attend or attended Miami Palmetto's senior high. Go Panthers. Take it away, Joe.
Thanks, Mayor. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here in Pinecrest. It appreciates the opportunity to help with this. You know, we believe that this is not only an important topic now, but it's an important topic always, particularly as we're coming out of COVID. It's important for everyone to realize, because I think many people have issues with this, but it's also very important for young folks in high school who may be experiencing this for the first time. I know I was in high school before. I suffered from similar anxiety, whether it's social anxiety and meeting new people, the fear of public speaking, or sometimes even today, I'm a little bit afraid to fly. So I'd like everybody to know this is not unusual. You're not alone in this. There are productive ways to cope with it. And once you do that, it makes life a lot easier. So thank you for having me here. We're looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to learning something new as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Cordino. I'm pleased to be able to collaborate with our neighboring city to address this very important topic. Also joining us today is school board member Luisa Santos. Every once in a while, an individual comes home and brings with them their life and education experience and pays it forward in a way that truly inspires and affects the next generation of students. And that is our District 9 school board member, Luisa Santos. Luisa will also be joining the program as a panelist. Luisa, a few welcome remarks, please.
Thank you so much, Mayor Cunningham, Mayor Cordino, and the students who put this together. It's very exciting to be here participating in this very important conversation. I too hope to learn a few things, but I can tell you that in everything I do, every student I meet with, every teacher, every school, mental health is top of mind. And this is something that we have to work together to understand, destigmatize, and then support every student in their journey. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you for organizing this.
Thank you, school board member. We appreciate you being here. Now I'd like to introduce you to our hosts who are joining me for today's presentation. These two very talented young ladies are the co-founders of Blooming Minds Miami. Lara Gastelumende is a junior at Mast at Homestead and is the co-founder of Blooming Minds Miami, a mental health initiative with a goal for providing greater access to mental health resources and, very important, destigmatizing mental health in our community. Her passion for helping create equity and serving her community extends to her work as a co-founder of the Mast Key Club, the head of instruction for a student-led tutoring organization, Generation Connected, and as a fellow to the school board member Luisa Santos's office fellowship. Not to mention, she's also a gymnast. In the future, Lara hopes to continue eliciting positive changes in her community by pursuing a medical degree and providing health care for underserved communities, along with continuing to advocate for increased access to health care and, of course, mental health care. Carolina Merchant Mendez is a junior at Palmetto Senior High, and she's also co-founder of Blooming Minds Miami. Her planning for this program started around November of 2020, but her actual work began in January of 2021. She has a very strong passion and interest in mental and physical health care, taking on summer community service programming during her freshman year and interacting with both patients and staff at the hospital. Outside of school and volunteering, Carolina is a swimmer and uses activity as a mental health stabilizer. Caro's future goals involve helping the community, likely with more mental health care, or changes to help marginalized and underrepresented communities. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our hosts. Lara, Caro.
Good evening. I'd first like to thank everyone for being here today to talk about such an important topic, especially in the midst of the pandemic, AP exam season for high schoolers, and other unprecedented circumstances of this past year that have really highlighted the importance of mental health in our young community. Through my and Carolina's work with creating Blooming Minds Miami, we hope to decrease the stigmatization of mental health in all ages and create a more informed and healthy community with the proper knowledge of mental health and the resources available. And today is one of our first steps in this mission. You can find us on Instagram at Blooming Minds Miami and on our new website, bloomingmindsmiami.wixsite.com/website. Again, I'd like to thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your efforts in addressing this topic and taking the time out of your busy schedules to answer our questions today, and especially to Mayor Cunningham for providing us with this platform and her continuous support.
Thank you, Lara, for that intro, and thank you everyone who's here joining us today on our Kids Town Hall and everyone who's listening at home. I would like to thank Mayor Cunningham for helping us further our initiative and her clear passion for mental health awareness. The Blooming Minds Project started off as a conversation in November about how the mental health situation in the U.S., especially Florida, has been extremely stigmatized, especially during this, in minority communities during this time with like the pandemic, where health resources are needed the most. It's really incredible to see how far we've gotten in just a few short months. And again, we're extremely thankful to all of those who have helped us expand our initiative. In the future, we hope to continue our efforts.
Now, Carolina and I would like to present our incredible panelists who are here to talk to us today on the topic of stress and anxiety in students. The questions we will be asking were created by me and Caro, along with the help of other local Miami-Dade County high school students who have greatly contributed to the development of Blooming Minds Miami. So we'd like to thank them as well.
And now I would like to introduce our first panelist, Harry Nirenberg. Harry entered teaching in the inner city of Philadelphia in 1975 after graduating Kutztown University with a bachelor's degree in education. Harry then began his 12-year career as a teacher/counselor at the J.R.E. Lee Opportunity School with at-risk students. As he moved from teaching to guidance, he received 2 advanced degrees at the University of Miami and FIU. 1 year later, his 8-year career as department chair of guidance at South Dade Senior High began. 19 years ago, he transferred to his neighborhood high school, where he has been a counselor and college counselor at Miami Palmetto Senior High. Harry will be retiring this June after 39 years in the Miami-Dade County public school system.
Sorry for that. Thank you for including me in this panel. I am flattered to be included, and I hope that we are able to offer some insight about this topic and let the people start talking about it. I think the more talk, the more we hear.
Thank you, Mr. Nirenberg. And next we have Catherine Magnoli, and I think she got disconnected, but she'll be back. And born with a birth defect that affected her spine, Catherine Magnoli has been living an active life for over 36 years. Growing up as the youngest in a family of 7 children, Catherine has always had an outgoing personality. She has also overcome many obstacles, making her a prime public speaker. Catherine has spoken in hundreds of events to children and adults of all ages. Catherine's traits do not stop here. She likes to push herself to new limits, and over the past 10 years has developed many forms of advocacy. In addition, Catherine has other literary accomplishments, such as being published in Chicken Soup for Soul's 2015 publication of Think Possible, along with several other disability magazines. She began her decade-long dream of running her nonprofit, aptly titled Cat Girl Friends Incorporated. The organization helps promote inclusion through literature and public speaking. Catherine's dream role in advocacy is being the host of an all-inclusive TV show that centers around disability education.
This is where Kat would speak, but I guess, thank you, Kat. Next, we would like to introduce Myra Solomon. She's a retired AT&T executive who spent her retirement years as an organizational leadership business consultant. Myra consults small to medium-sized businesses on diversity and inclusion, training and development, and business ethics and protocol. She earned her MBA from the University of Miami and holds a Bachelor's of Science in Economics from Brown University, as well as an internationally certified JCTC, Toronto, Canada. She's an ardent community activist, where she has joined forces with Miami Pact, Chapman Partnership for the Homeless, and Homestead Correctional Institute, a maximum security prison, where she conducted and wrote a 10-week transition program for inmates. Myra is a proud and active member of Women for Tomorrow at Miami Killian High School, where she mentors monthly high school young ladies in an effort to get them a college scholarship. She also joined the board of BAM nearly 2 years ago because she saw a void of young Black Americans in the field of architecture.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mayor Cunningham and Kara and Laura. I'm not sure if you realize the magnitude that this pandemic has had on our teenagers. And so it's with great admiration that I'm a part of this panel, because I agree that stress has really been something that teenagers have not been able to pivot from as much as we want them to. Thank you for having me.
And thank you. And next we have Dr. Amanda Jensen-Doss. Dr. Jensen-Doss is a professor and the director of the Child and Family Division in the Department of Psychology at the University of Miami. Her research seeks to characterize and improve youth clinical care, particularly by testing the benefits of employing evidence-based assessment tools and treatments in clinical care settings. Her work has been funded by the National Institute of Mental Health and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. She has numerous articles published in top-tier journals and is the co-editor of a book on diagnostic and behavioral assessment in youth.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be part of this great work that Laura and Caro are doing with Blooming Minds Miami, and I'm excited to talk with all of you today.
Thank you so much. Next, we would like to introduce Dr. Jill Ehrenreich-May. She's a professor and assistant chair in the Department of Psychology at the University of Miami. Dr. Ehrenreich-May is a Miami native and the author of over 140 published works. She's perhaps best known for her clinical trials, research, and evidence-based treatment manuals for youth anxiety and depression. She currently has research funding from the National Institutes of Health and several foundation sources to support this work. Dr. Ehrenreich-May directs Child and Adolescent Mood and Anxiety Treatment Program at the University of Miami, which provides evidence-based psychotherapy services to the local community. She's also the incoming president-elect of the Association for Behavioral and Cognitive Therapies.
Well, thank you so much to Laura and Caro for bringing us all together. And I can tell you that as somebody who directs research on evidence-based care for youth with anxiety over here at I can tell you that in my experience, there's really never been a greater demand for education and for mental health services to help children and teens with their distress than there is right now. So I really appreciate being here to support the conversation.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have school board member Luisa Santos. Luisa Santos represents everything great about Miami-Dade County Public Schools and is working to write the next chapter of student success in District 9. She moved to Miami from Colombia when she was 8, thanks to MBCPS, she was speaking fluent English by age 9. During her junior year at Coral Reef Senior High, Luisa discovered she was undocumented. She persisted, starting her higher education at Miami-Dade College and eventually becoming a proud U.S. citizen. Luisa worked in President Obama's U.S. Department of Education in Washington, D.C., while completing her studies in political economy and education at Georgetown University. She knows teachers and school staff can change lives. She saw it firsthand teaching fourth graders and leading a mentoring and advocacy literacy program for historically underserved third graders. Luisa eventually came home to Miami to launch her own business, Lulu's Ice Cream, through which she has reimagined what students can learn in the workplace. Luisa's career narrative as a change agent, thought leader, mentor, and education advocate was built on what Miami-Dade County Public Schools taught her. As our school board member, Luisa fights to empower the next generation.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get started.
And thank you all for participating in the 2021 Kids Virtual Town Hall. And with that, I think we're ready to start with the questions.
Our first question goes to Harry Narenberg. Harry, as a high school counselor, what are the most prevalent sources of stress that you've seen in students today? And what advice do you have to give to students dealing with stress in their academics and extracurriculars?
Where do we start with this kind of question? It's a loaded question, actually, because we really do start the stress as early as 6th grade when we offer them high school classes and tell them this is for real. This is going on your transcript for the colleges. And, you know, they're dealing with the whole idea of adolescence and puberty, and they're going through the time period between 6th to 12th grade. And here we are, you know, with family situations that can create stress. They have their own feeling of imperfections, and they look at their self-worth. All of this just builds up along then with peer pressure and trying to do things the right way or maybe even the wrong way at times. And all along there's this pressure, no matter where they are, the level they're at, whether they're attempting to go to an Ivy League college or just graduate high school, we lay this pressure on them, and along with their own emotional feelings, their self-worth really gets tested. That combined with distractions like we have with the internet and with social media, we're just laying it on layer and layer and layer. And it gets to a point where either they figure out a way to handle it or we find them help. And the goal, I think, is finding them the correct help with counselors and trust counselors and mental health professionals. Getting them to ask for help when it becomes too much is the key. So, I mean, that's my goal. If I get a student in my office as young as when I was in middle school or high school, getting them started to be trusting the counselor and then guiding them to someone who could professionally help them after us. So I think that pretty much answers that question as much as I can possibly do it at this point.
Thank you so much for that answer. And our next question goes to Myra Solomon. As a mentor for the Women of Tomorrow program, have you seen gender biases in schools, such as how boys are often more encouraged and more likely to pursue STEM activities and courses? And how does this affect the self-esteem and stress within young girls? And what is some advice that you have for young girls in this situation?
Thanks, Laura, for asking the question. And yes, yes, yes. There is a bias between boys and girls. And I just want to talk about 4 things that I think helps to perpetuate the gender STEM gaps. First, there's a stereotype. STEM fields are often viewed as masculine, and teachers, and believe it or not, parents, often underestimate girls and their math abilities, starting as early as preschool. It's a male-dominated culture, the STEM field, and so they are very comfortable with that. And so they tend to be less inflexible. And so for that, women are not attracted to those kinds of fields. Thirdly, there are fewer role models. Girls do not see in magazines and books and pop culture examples of female scientists and engineers. And worse, if you are a minority, you very rarely see Black women or Hispanic women in math and science. And lastly, there's a math anxiety. And typically we have more female teachers than male teachers. And so if the teacher themselves is fearful of math, then they might turn that on to their kids, or they tend to grade girls a little harder than boys. So my advice for young teen girls wanting to enter the STEM field would be not to be afraid to be uncomfortable. In other words, get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. What you have to do is let men feel comfortable with you, knowing that you have earned the right to be there and that you're an asset to the team and that you can, come up with good ideas. And don't be afraid to try new things and take the lead. So that's some of the advice that I would give to some of the young girls.
Thank you so much. Our next question goes to Dr. Jensen Doss. Through your research, you've looked for the strengths and limitations of youth mental health care in clinical care settings. In my area, I've seen how many students and families feel a certain stigma towards talking about mental health, and especially seeking mental health care. How important is it for students to maintain their mental health and seek care when needed?
That is a great question. And my short answer is it's incredibly important to seek help when you need it. But you're really right that stigma gets in the way of people getting the help they need. And the thing that I think we all need to remember is that most, if not all, people could benefit from having some mental health care during their lifetime. I recently saw a study saying that nearly 80% of people will meet criteria for a mental illness during their lifetime. And we know that you don't have to be at that level of distress to benefit from needing some support. So, I would love to see us get to a point where we can all see our mental health as important as our physical health. We all get checkups every year. Imagine what it would be like if people got mental health checkups every year in the same way that we get our physical health checked. And we just assumed that everybody was going to need treatment at some point and make it available to them. That's the dream. I think taking that stigma away and increasing access to care would make such a difference for so many people.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and thank you so much for that answer. The next question is for Dr. Erin Reich-May. With the high possibility of students fully returning to in-person school next year, many are feeling anxious about engaging in various social situations on a daily basis again. What are some strategies that children and teens in this situation can use to ease their anxiety, such as mindfulness techniques and other techniques that we can use in our lives?
Thank you for the great question. And the first thing I would say is that similar to what Mayor Cordino said earlier, it's really important to recognize that it's normal and natural to have fear and anxiety about things that are truly threatening. This is our body protecting us from harm, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. And let's face it, COVID has been a real threat to us. It's been, our collective fear of it has prompted us to do what anxiety normally makes us do, avoid or escape the threat. But now that the threat feels like it is lessening for some people in theory, our avoidance or escape behaviors, I guess, also should lessen. So if that's not normally happening for you, or you're not naturally feeling that shift, because let's face it, we've all been avoiding for a long time now due to COVID, people that study fear like myself often recommend that you work on gradual or a baby stepped plan to try to re-engage. So if you only feel comfortable in the beginning of doing this, going out with one friend at a park because you've been on MSO all this time and haven't seen your friends all that much, just start there and gradually increase the challenge over time. I think the summer is going to be a great time to work on this before school starts next year, when many people will be returning in person. And if you get overwhelmed, using techniques like mindfulness to help ground yourself in the present moment, increasing your awareness of the safety that's around you might help you to cope and make progress as you approach new situations.
Thank you so much for that response. Our next question goes to Luisa Santos. One of your main priorities as a school board member involves social emotional learning. Can you explain what SEL is and how it benefits student mental and emotional well-being? How do you hope to see SEL learning in Miami-Dade County Public Schools?
Thank you so much for that question, and I'm already learning a ton, so this is great. SEL, or social emotional learning, really is the process through which children, adults, people in general can acquire and apply specific knowledge, attitudes, and skills which are necessary to building positive relationships, making good decisions, feeling and showing empathy. And there are 5 sets of behavioral components, let's say, that people think about under SEL. And they include self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And so what we want is to have every child embedded within their everyday experience in the classroom be able to develop these very important skill sets, habits, behaviors, and really to be able to do it in a way that is integrated. Because we know that our brain has to be a learning brain to be able to acquire new knowledge. And if we can address students' emotional needs, we can make sure that they're ready to learn when they're in our classrooms. And I'm very excited to say that this summer specifically, we see a shift in Miami-Dade County Public Schools in that we are going to prioritize social emotional learning, mental health through our summer programming. And we are going to staff our summer programs with counselors who will specifically be working on this, which is really exciting and a step in the right direction.
That's really amazing. And now we will be moving into our second round of questions. Back to Harry Narenberg.
Okay, Mr. Narenberg, as a CAP counselor, you've probably experienced many kids struggling to grapple with the stress that comes with college applications and decisions. So what is some advice that you can give to the upcoming seniors regarding managing this stressful time?
Okay. Boy, I wish there was just a patent answer for this one too, but I guess I'll look at the two juniors in this panel and ask you and tell you something and see how you react. Everything's going to be okay. No matter where you land 1 year from today, because this will be when you're making your decision, you will be in control of your decision and going to a place that's going to be new and exciting and with so much future possibilities that you're going to be so overwhelmed with that decision. But how do you get there? And I guess the metaphor I use for the college application process is colleges is like leasing a car. You know, you have a destination and you're going to lease a car for 4 years. And this car, which is a college, is going to be your vehicle to get where you want to go. How do you do it? You have to jump the hoops that they have set for you. And college application is a business. Colleges, the recruitment is a business. Right now, you're getting emails and letters recruiting you to apply to their schools. And, you know, they want to know your credit score, which is your SATs. They're going to want to know how much money you have in the bank, which are your grades. And they're going to know about your whole background, which is all your activities and all the things you've done in school. And put that all together, and you're going to lease a college to get where you need to go. And it is going to be okay. Will it be stressful? Absolutely. Will it create anxiety? Absolutely. There's no way you can do this process like a cool breeze. You have to go through the process by being educated and learning. Luckily, Dade County Public Schools has a SCORE program now, which allows you to keep organized and structured, and you can set goals and find out your own strengths and weaknesses. And I think we're giving you the tools to help you find the vehicle that you're going to need. Also, the last thing I will say about this, you will only get help if you ask. If you sit and smile when the counselors come in and talk about college, they're going to think you have it under control when you really don't. So my suggestion is to use the CAP advisor at your school, to use the counselors at your school, to use the experienced teachers at your school to help you get through this. And know everything's going to be okay.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you pushing the narratives that like it's okay to ask for help. I feel like that's very important.
So I'll see you next week, right?
Our next question goes to Myra Solomon. Myra, you've told us that you bring in a lot of retired adults to speak to your girls. Are there any lessons that you and your mentees have learned from these experiences that you can share with the viewers in regard to managing stress and anxiety?
Yes, thanks so much, Kara, for that question. And yes, I always take the opportunity to lean on my friends who don't volunteer a whole lot to come in and speak to my girls. And what has helped the girls is we take them out of their normal environment and we take them into the environment of the people who come in. And sometimes this opens their awareness, because if they wanted to be a lawyer or a judge, sitting in a courtroom, seeing how the proceedings work and seeing how all that plays out, it may either turn them more on to that field, or they may decide that might not be something for them. And so the other thing that I tell them how they manage stress is to slow down just a little bit. Don't take on too many projects. Don't become so overwhelmed. And don't be embarrassed to ask for help. It's okay. So they have to be able to manage their mental health, their physical health, their emotional health, all of that at the same time. But I do think helping them by bringing in people that they see themselves in another woman has been a game changer.
Thank you so much for that. The program sounds incredible. And our next question is for Dr. Jensen Doss. Along the lines of the previous question that we had asked you, what are some ways that children and families can start meaningful conversations about mental health? And what are some helpful resources that students and families can turn to when seeking mental health support?
It's a great question too. And, I think that the way to have a meaningful conversation about these things is to have an ongoing conversation about these things. So, if families are checking in with each other about how they're doing and opening the door to that conversation, that's a really important first step, especially because, I hear from the kids that we work with that they sometimes worry about being judged or maybe even stressing out their parents if they share that they're struggling. And so parents can really help their kids a lot by letting them know that they're open to hearing about these things, that it's normal to struggle, but that you don't have to live with it and that you can get help. And so in terms of resources, I'm going to share two things that I think are about increasing access to information and care. So the first one is a website called effectivechildtherapy.org, and we've put that in the materials that will be available after this call. This is a website that has information about treatment for children and adolescents. It also has screening tools that parents can answer about their kids or that kids can fill out to find out, like, is my stress higher than other kids my age? Like, that kind of thing can be helpful. My other tip is that sometimes it can be difficult to find affordable mental health services. And one good underutilized resource is university-based clinics. So in the University of Miami Psychology Department, we have the Psychological Services Center, and Dr. Erin Reich-May has the KMAT clinic, and FIU has a clinic called the Center for Children and Families. And all of these clinics are places where students are learning to do therapy. They're closely supervised by experts in their field, and families can get really great services for a little less money than they're going to find in other places. And so I feel like not every family knows about that as an option, and so I always like to plug that.
Thank you so much. Our next question goes to Dr. Erin Reich-May. Dr. Erin Reich, do you have any advice for the parents watching this regarding supporting their children and helping them through any stress and anxiety that they might be feeling, especially during this time with online learning, potential economic stressors in the family, and other factors that have been amplified due to the pandemic?
I'm actually going to answer a slightly different question about what caregivers can do, because I think while this pandemic has been so hard on youth, and that's really being shown again and again, it's also been really hard on parents and other caregivers like our teachers, for all of the reasons you just cited, emotionally and in so many other ways too. So much so that in addition to supporting children in distress, in my program, we've actually been offering brief telehealth groups to support caregiver emotional health during COVID. And it may sound a little silly, but the first thing I ask caregivers to do who are already fairly overwhelmed, is to dedicate a little more time, let's just say like 2 to 3 minutes at least, to notice and try to increase one self-care thing that means a lot to them, something that is really aligned with their personal values, that they can do on a daily basis to try to keep themselves going, to try to keep their spirits up. It could be something fun or something peaceful, anything that you truly enjoy or care about. And if you can do it collaboratively with your child, even better. So really my advice to caregivers is to do what they tell you to do on airplanes, to put your own oxygen mask on first before putting your child's on. Because we know that when caregivers are experiencing, their own significant emotional distress, they are more likely to accidentally, and I do mean accidentally, reinforce or kind of aid and abet their child's emotional distress, their avoidance, their escape behaviors. So caregiver self-care is actually key not only to parents coping, but with the huge stressors that we're all facing right now, but also to children's coping.
Thank you so much for that answer. And our final question of the evening goes to School Board Member Luisa Santos. Another one of your priorities is decreasing the student to counselor ratio. So can you talk to us about this and how increasing the number of counselors works to improve the stress and mental health of students?
Absolutely. I think what we've all discussed in this conversation is just how important it is to get help, right? There should be no shame in doing that. We have an awesome, CAP counselor here who's talking to us about, come see me in the office tomorrow. And so what this would do, if we can lower the student to counselor ratio, it will allow a lot more of those connections to be built. It will allow a lot more of our students to feel heard, to feel a sense of belonging, to feel cared for, and to get the help they need when they need it. If we are past the point of preventative, proactive care and are in the point where we have to respond to, react to a situation. And so, sense of belonging, all research shows, is one of the biggest drivers for student success. And so if we have more counselors, they can start to develop some more of those relationships because it is a slightly different relationship than it is to a teacher. I can tell you my trust counselor in my high school not only was there for me through my parents' divorce and so many other things that were going on in my life, but she also led the peer mentoring group. And so I was able to proactively learn all of the ways to mitigate, disagreements and to be able to share my emotions, feel heard, understand others. And I was trained to do that at a very early age because of my counselors. So this is the possibility that is out there. Currently our elementary student to counselor ratio is 800 students to one counselor. That's unacceptable. And our K-8 middle and senior allocation is 450 to 1. And so 480, sorry. The maximum recommended is 250 to 1 by all professional kind of standards. And so we've got a lot of work to do here. It's something I will continue to fight for, and hopefully something that will be different because of my being here.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the answer and your efforts. And thank you so much to everyone who participated today. We really hope that it's opened the door to further conversations regarding stress, anxiety, and just overall mental health of people in our community.
Yes, again, thank you to all of you. This was truly incredible. And as we mentioned in the beginning, we have an Instagram at Blooming Minds Miami, where we post information on mental illnesses, resources, mental health policies, and more. And a new website, bloomingmindsmiami.wixsite.com/website, where we will have mental health related blog posts regarding self-care, policies, information on mental health resources for specific groups, interviews, and eventually more mental health webinars with mental health professionals. Once again, thank you to all our panelists, Mayor Karen Cunningham, Mayor Joe Corradino, and everyone else who has helped today make today a reality. And thank you to all the viewers watching this. We hope you've learned something from our 2021 Kids Virtual Town Hall.
Thank you, ladies, so much. What an amazing hour of power this has been. I want to thank my colleagues, Mayor Corradino and School Board Member Santos, and of course, our amazing panel of experts. I think the one common thread we heard in each one of their responses was, don't be afraid to ask for help. Say it with me, everybody. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Awesome. So a very special thank you also to Caro and Lara. All I can say is, if this is who is going to lead our future, I can rest easy. We are in really good hands. You'll see right at the end, there is a compiled list of wonderful resources that the girls have put together. Take advantage of it if you need it. And thank you guys. I appreciate everyone watching and all of our amazing panelists. Thank you. Bye.